Radhe Radhe. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. May this be an offering to Shri Radha Krishna, and allow me to set the intentions for this space as we await our first guests to arrive. May we come together as fellow spiritual seekers to uplift each other, relate in one another's experience, and share positive sentiments. Hello, Kills. Namaste, Sky Guardian. I hope that you all feel accepted, welcomed, comfortable here, regardless of your background or how you're feeling. I know that life is unpredictable at times, and that gives rise to a variety of feelings. Know that whatever feelings you are arriving here in this Sangha with, you are allowed to be here. Hello, Leo. Hello, Speckles. I had a lovely day so far. I went for a walk with my mother on the beach, and I enjoyed that. The sun is nice and warm today. And hello, Brink Recovery. Welcome. And thank you for a rose. Radhe Radhe. And hello, Child of Reason. I'm happy that you are here. Now I have a question of the day for you all. You are certainly welcome to attend to it. If not, that's okay too. Today I am wondering, I don't know if you can see it on the background that well. Maybe I can change the brightness, but it says, what potential do you see in yourself? Here, I'll make it a little lighter. What potential do you see in yourself? And you're free to interpret it in any way that you see. And thank you, Trina, for your rose. Radhe Radhe. It is always a good thing to be able to foresee in ourselves aspects that we would benefit if we pursued, explored. Bartender, you share that you see a potential to ensure trust in others again. That's a difficult thing, isn't it? But always a beautiful possibility. Hello, Kevin, and thank you for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. Cheshire's Moon, you share that healing and accepting is a potential you see in yourself. Absolutely. And thank you, Paige, for your pair of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. Arthur, you see the potential to be whole and healthy. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Those absolutely are potentials. And thank you, John F., for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. For Sindra Drops, you share that you see the potential of learning and growing. I love that. That is good to see. Leo, you share that you see the potential of doing. Indeed, the Shakti of movement, of accomplishment. And thank you, Alicia, for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. Margarita, you share that you see the potential to pass graded unit. Well, as long as you apply your best, I am sure that good things will come your way. John, after you say love is a potential you see. And Lotus Flower, you see the potential of bringing forth healing through love. And Ragnvaldor, Ragnvaldor, You shared that you see the cosmos, the universe, the potential of infinity, but at the same time that of a simple life. It is funny. These two forces drive us to expand, but also to be still. MJ, you see the potential to be peaceful for those around you. Having someone with you that's peaceful can be of a great assistance, that's for sure. And thank you, Arthur, for your balloons. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, Bobby Sue, for your heart meat. Jai Sita Ram. Brink Recovery, you shared that you see the potential to truly forgive those who have wronged me and others and haven't asked forgiveness. That's a beautiful and powerful thing to see. Yeah, and what a process that is. And thank you, Bobby Sue, for another team bracelet and cheer you up too. Hello, Mari. Radhe Radhe. Arden, you share that you remember me as the math guy. And do I still do that? Or have I gone magic dimensional weirdness style? Spiritual more. What's the difference? I suppose you could describe math as exactly that. At least that's what I saw in the kind of math that I explored. Kills, you share that you see the potential to fall asleep in a few minutes. Well, I'll try not to scare you then. And thank you, Kailia, for the sweet memories. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, BJS, for your trio of roses. Jai Sita Ram. And Kills, thank you for your heart, me too. Alright, we've got some good responses. I am very grateful for all of your answers on this question of the day. Thank you. And namaste, Echo Leaf. And I like Snoozy Womble. It's a tough one. Snoozy Womble. You see the potential to learn more. That's great. Bartender, you ask me, what potential do I see in me? I think I could be humbler, more open to experience new things, and I could take life a little less seriously sometimes. And thank you, Brink Recovery, for your TGIF too. And thank you, MJ, for your 9 roses and hand heart. Radhe Radhe. I have a very special reading for you all today. Today we are starting a book called Roar of the Ganges. This is a book written by another Swami, Swami Taratmanandaji, and this is the guru of one of our Sangis, Sky Guardian, who has graciously offered to send one of his books my way for us to read in the Sangha with the blessings of his guru. So, without further ado, we'll start with the back of it. This is a fascinating story of the transformation of a young, successful American computer engineer into a Hindu sannyasi and a teacher of Vedanta. This book provides a real flavor of ashram life in the Himalayas, along with interesting character sketches of seekers and sadhus. Skillfully woven into this tale are some of the most important teachings of Vedanta. The clarity of the author's vision and his personal writing style easily lead to penetrating insights into a subject usually considered mystifying and inaccessible. A valuable introduction to Vedanta that unfolds the wisdom of the ancient sages in a contemporary manner without compromising its profound traditional contents. Another quote. He talks about the lifestyle in the ashrams in Rishikesh, his interaction with Swami Dayananda, and his discussions with the inmates of ashrams. His expression on the teachings of our scriptures are clear. It is really interesting to learn the experiences of the author. From The Hindu. And one more quote on the back. It is fascinating to read about his intense spiritual life and to see complex Vedantic doctrines being expressed in simple language which appeals to our reason. From the Indian Review of Books. Hello, Small. Sky Guardian was even nice enough to get it signed by Swami Taratmanandaji, which, if I can read his handwriting, says, "With prayer and best wishes." Some acknowledgements to his Guru Pujya Swami Dayananda, many friends, his students, and his editor. And there's a little preface to the revised edition, sharing how this book is finally being reprinted, and that this book was originally written as his humble attempt to present the teachings of Vedanta in a compelling and accessible manner. Instead of writing a heavy philosophical treatise few would enjoy, I attempted to weave the central teachings of Vedanta into an interesting story. The story of a young American who immersed himself in the ancient Hindu traditions and was profoundly transformed. That story, of course, is my story. Telling my personal story also gave me the opportunity to share insights gleaned from experience throughout my life, especially during my spiritual journey from its muddled beginnings in the late 1970s up to my initiation as a sannyasi Hindu monk in 1993. I included other insights about sannyasa and life in the ashrams of Rishikesh for those unique individuals totally committed to a spiritual lifestyle. Alright, without further ado, for real, here's an introduction, and we get a little hand-drawn depiction of where I assume this story takes place. Here on the banks of the river Ganges, also known as the Ganga. Naked, I stood in the Ganges' frigid waters as dark clouds shrouding the Himalayas unleashed their fury. Gusts of wind ripped the pre-dawn sky and stung my skin with needles of rain. But I was oblivious to the elements. I could only sense the tremendous consequence of this moment. I had not eaten or slept since yesterday morning, when 3 Hindu priests arrived to guide me through hours of preparatory rituals. I had spent the entire night intoning mantras and tending a sacrificial fire. After its hungry tongues of flame consumed my final oblations of ghee, I marched to the river and immersed myself in its sacred waters as a final act of purification. Now the preparations were complete. Time itself stood frozen, bearing witness as I recited ancient Sanskrit vows by which I renounced everything, giving up my former life forever. The Ganges roared in approval. Previously, I enjoyed a 6-figure income from a computer consulting firm and lived in a beautiful California home overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And now, after years of rigorous training in meditation, Sanskrit, and the canonical scriptures of Hinduism, I was ordained a monk in India's most traditional monastic order. As dramatic as it may seem, this transformation was neither sudden nor unexpected. It was the inexorable result of a spiritual journey, a journey of inquiry and of discovery. My spiritual quest had led me in 2 directions. First, it led me within to explore inner dimensions of my own being. There, I encountered hidden fears, self-doubt, selfishness, ego, aspects of myself I had always been reluctant to face. These subtle adversaries seemed like hideous, distorted reflections one might see in an amusement park's house of mirrors. I learned to embrace these inner demons and bring them along on my journey so they could be healed. Eventually, I was led to discover a deeper dimension of myself, a realm overflowing with love, gratitude, and joy. I felt as if I had arrived at a verdant mountain retreat after driving for days through urban sprawl and scorched prairies. The other aspect of my journey, the outer dimension, led me around the hemisphere to the subcontinent of India. I found its spiritual landscape inhabited by a bewildering mosaic of people. I met learned scholars in remote hermitage who taught disciples devoted to unraveling the mysteries of life. I visited cave-dwelling yogis who passed their days exploring the depths of meditation. I listened to Brahmin priests chant Sanskrit mantras in temples where their ancestors had worshipped for generations. I walked alongside saffron-robed monks who wandered the countryside, living on alms. I learned that these men and women are part of a spiritual subculture that is anything but monolithic. Their lifestyles span the extremes, from uncompromising asceticism to lavish urbanity. Some dress in elegant robes, some in rags. Some roam the Himalayas sky-clad, clothed only with the 4 directions. As it is said, their naked bodies smeared with sacred ash. They belong to numerous sects and lineages, or follow paths of their own creation, rejecting all traditions. I should not have been surprised to learn that their spiritual practices are as diverse as their frequently eccentric personalities. I found that the members of this spiritual subculture occupy a vast ideological landscape. They themselves often say, "We seek one truth, but follow many paths. We believe in one God, but worship God in many forms." So it is inevitable that they espouse a broad range of philosophies, religious beliefs, and spiritual teachings. These are the ingredients of the eclectic spiritual stew found throughout modern India, a concoction that includes lofty metaphysical theories, archaic superstitions, sectarian dogmas, and universal truths. It is hard to imagine a more diverse mixture. And hello G. Hello Nani. And hello Mihai. These dissimilar elements are usually lumped together and designated by the familiar term Hinduism. For this reason, Hinduism is unlike most religions, which are generally based on specific doctrines embraced by all followers. But even though the word Hinduism does not designate a particular doctrine, it is still a meaningful and useful label if we keep in mind the complex entity it represents. What distinguishes this amalgamation as being Hindu is that it all evolved from a single source, the Vedic scriptures of ancient India. Thousands of years before the advent of Buddha, Christ, and the Prophet of Islam, sages meditating in Himalayan caves and in huts on the banks of sacred rivers expressed their exalted discoveries in mystical Sanskrit verses. Their works were passed down through the generations by a tradition of oral recitation. Eventually, this material was compiled to form the Vedas, considered by most scholars to be the world's oldest scriptures. The Vedas were chanted for many centuries before finally being written down on palm leaves in comparatively recent times. These scriptures became seeds of inspiration for the wide range of religious, philosophical, and spiritual teachings found in India's spiritual stew. To develop this metaphor further, consider a recipe passed along from cook to cook. Each will surely adapt the recipe to suit his or her tastes. In a similar way, the Vedas were drawn upon and adapted by generations of teachers according to their own inclinations and according to the needs of their students. Even today, new teachings continue to evolve. Many cast fresh light on the truths enfolded in the mystical poetry of the sages, or explored new territory while remaining firmly based on Vedic principles. Hello, the bearded mystic. You share that Swami Taratmanandaji is one of your favorite gurus alive today. How lovely is that? Thank you for sharing. Among all these emergent teachings, some fail to embody the profundity of the Vedas. Consider again a recipe that gets adapted. Some variations will be delightful, whereas others turn out to be insipid or unpalatable, depending on the skill of each cook. In a similar way, some teachers have unwittingly garbled the message of the sages. At best, the result of such distortions is a loss of clarity. At worst, the result is a gross corruption in which the teachings are robbed of their capacity to convey the vision of the sages. Thank you, Jas. Hello, Steve. Such was the complexity of the spiritual world into which I had so naively stepped. I had entered a vast spiritual marketplace whose astonishing variety of goods overwhelmed me. It seemed like the buzzing confusion of a typical Indian bazaar. A narrow lane choked with shoppers, bicycles, scooters, and crows. Tiny shops and vending carts clustered together, luring shoppers with enticing displays of colorful wares. And from all directions, the piercing, nasal voices of merchants touting their daily bargains. Bananas, 4 rupees a dozen. Sandals, highest quality sandals. In those chaotic conditions, I found it difficult to distinguish a real bargain from a sham. To avoid second-rate merchandise, shoppers in the bazaar must be alert and knowledgeable. I discovered that the spiritual marketplace is no different. Everything there is not equally worthy of pursuit. Seekers, faced with a staggering array of choices, are left to exercise their own discretion. They must distinguish between authentic teachers and self-styled wise men. They must differentiate ancient traditions from modern hodgepodges that dilute and distort the message of the sages. And above all, they must avoid scam artists and hypocrites with selfish motives. Spiritual seekers would be well advised to heed the dictum, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. All right, why don't we pause our reading of this wonderful book there. I thank Sky Guardian again for this wonderful gift, not just to me, but for our Sangha. I am sure that it will serve us all well. So I thank you everyone for listening with me. What a great poetic introduction into general spiritual environment of India and the many traditions that are diverse and yet unified. Dansuela, you share that the book has such rich imagery. It's beautiful. I'm happy that you saw that too. Hello, Brad. You sent a 4-leaf clover emoji. That's lovely. I found a 4-leaf clover today, actually. 2 of them. One for me and one for my mom. And thank you, Astrid, for your heart meet. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, G, for your trio of roses. Jai Sita Ram. 31 planes of existence, you are asking. What's our Sanskrit word of the day? You are our Sanskrit Duolingo. I really like the word Bharami. That's Bharaami. Bharami. It means I bear, I carry. Perhaps in reference to the feelings that we may be experiencing. Bharami. It's a validation that this is something I have space for. Steve, you say that I'd transfix you with my wisdom and wear you down with the time I am live. I'm like spiritual sandpaper. What is sandpaper measured in? It's in grit. I hope I'm very refined. I hope I give you a smooth finish. And Dansuela, you ask, would I be able to write it so we can see it? Sort of like Sanskrit Sesame Street? Yeah, you know, there's a new feature that I haven't tried yet. Apparently I'm able to mark up my screen. I think I could even write out the word for you. See if this works. It's very difficult drawing with a mouse that's on my leg. That's Bha. And then here is the Ra. And then we add another line to make that vowel long. Bhara. And then here this is the I sound from the M. And then we make the M sound here. Bharami. There, I can do the Latin transliteration as well. I think the funny thing is that my ability to write Latin letters is probably worse than Devanagari. The question is, how do I clear it afterwards? That is also a challenge. Here we go. Like Sesame Street, we're sponsored by the Sanskrit word of the day, parami. You are well polished. Glad to hear it, Steve. Okay, I think there's the button. But cool, I'm glad we have that ability. Now you are wondering, yes, FQ, how much longer am I going live? Well, hopefully a good few hours still, given that we've only just begun, relatively. And Small, you had mentioned that someone else picked a 4-leaf clover today too. It's just one of those days. Well, I'm glad to hear that the luck is flowing. That's for sure. So 31 planes of existence. You ask for clarity. So it means I carry it. It means I can hold it all. I think so. Yeah. I like that interpretation. I'm no scholar. This is my naive understanding. Barami. I bear it. I am bearing it. I am carrying it. Rachel, you say that the makeup filter looks great on me. Does it add makeup? Oh, it does. I didn't even notice that. I thought it just increased the saturation. Well, quel dommage. Thank you. And thank you, Miss Tinfoil Hat, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. I trust that you are all probably facing many things in life, as we all are. May this be a reminder that regardless of the adversities we experience in life, it is always possible to use these challenges for character growth, to develop our personalities, to increase our wisdom and our ability to hold more space. And thank you, Astrid, for your 11 roses. Hariom Tat Sat. And thank you, Grace, for your rose. Jai Sita Ram. And good night to you too, Ro. Happy to have you here. We might be inclined to want to feel good all of the time, or at the very least shy away from feeling bad. However, even the bad times teach us something, and it sounds cheesy to acknowledge, and it is very cheesy, but I like cheese. Camembert, brie with a little honey. I like me a good cheese. Cecilia, you had asked, how do I know if I love somebody? It reminds me of a joke. What's the difference between being in love with someone and having a crush? Well, if they cut their hair and you don't like them anymore, you weren't in love with them. So, from this we might gather that we love when it's deep, when it's not about what's on the surface. It's not about how they charm us with words or appearances. It's something that might not be able to be expressed through words or sight. It's a kind of possibility to watch them grow, to have that honor of sharing this life with them. I would say that kind of opening of your heart is closer to love. And thank you, Astrid, for your heart. Radhe, Radhe. Steve, you wondered, did I win the game of chess yesterday? I appreciate your memory. Nonetheless, we did not play because I had unfortunately ended my live a little too late and missed out on the opportunity. But I'm sure another game is in our near future between me and my dad. Good evening, Audrey. My day has been well so far. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? Yes, you share that you had to let someone go because you didn't love yourself. That's a powerful thing, and a very honorable thing to do as well. When we love somebody, we need to be capable of holding that love ourselves. Otherwise, we exhaust ourselves. Echo Leaf, you ask, if one sees another across a bar, how can they see their heart? Some people wear their heart on their sleeve, as the saying goes. Are they a gruff man buying a nice pink drink with a slice of lemon? It's a good sign that they are open, that they are happy to express themselves. Steve, you ask, is that a projector behind you, or just a background on green screen? It is neither. It is a tapestry. You were wondering why my pupils are super dilated. Yes, as Smol says, it's a common question, and I often direct you to my frequently asked questions, which is in the link tree of my bio, and there I give you a more lengthy explanation. However, in short, you could just say that I'm high off life. Tansuela, you say, oh no, you lifted the universe and ruined the illusion. It's just a window behind there. Indeed. And it was my cat's favorite window. They loved walking up on the sill and sniffing the garden out there. So I feel a little bad that I've put a tapestry over it. But there's more than one window in my room to the garden, so they'll have to make do. Thank you, Tattvamasi, for your 5 roses. Radhe, Radhe. Does the catio have a window? Oh yeah, it is. It is all window. Very modern. And thank you, Ramona, for your rose too. Jai Sitaram. Blake, you ask, if you could go back and make one decision differently, what would it be? I think something more powerful than changing the past is accepting the present. It's far too easy to look back at our past actions and come up with alternatives. And it's a very good thing that our mind has this capacity, because it's how we learn from mistakes. But the point of utilizing this retrospective analysis is not to attach yourself to an alternate timeline. It's to shape how your actions in the present are. So, for example, we could say, what action in the past could we learn from to become a better person now? Amanda, you shared that it was kind of a crazy accurate metaphor for life, no? Lifting the universe and revealing that it was but a window. That is very meta. The window of the soul, witnessing all this cosmic dance. And that's quite alright, G. You know, some days are just loaded with work. That's understandable. As long as we do our best and ensure that we get the best rest too. Thank you. Thank you, Tan How You, for another heart me. Radhe, Radhe. And this is my show. Thank you for your hand hearts. And for your fruit friends. That's very cute. Jai Sitaram. And Bobby Sue. Thank you for your pair finger hearts. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Isabella, for your heart me, team bracelet, and cheer you up. Jai Sitarama. And I like that, Saturnus. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. Gotta make some mistakes. Very true. We can be thankful for the things we've done right, and even more grateful for the things we've done wrong. And thank you, this is my show, for another heart meet. Jai Sitarama. Audrey, you ask, have I started a bucket list yet? Anyone know where it comes from, a bucket list? What does the bucket have to do with this list? I guess before we kick the bucket list? Is that what it means? Things to do before you kick the bucket? There are many things in this present moment that are doorways to achieving things in the future. And I might not have any specific things in mind for how I want to live my life in the future, but I do want to make the most out of now. And I look forward to wherever it directs me to. Yeah, that's it. Before you kick the bucket list. Thank you, G, for your 2 roses. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, 31 planes of existence, for your hand hearts. Alicia, you ask, have you ever had a thought or realization that blew your own mind? I think every day something opens my mind a little more. One of the big ones that I had a few months ago was about Jesus in the Bible. I was thinking how Jesus was born of a miraculous conception and that Jesus is God. And then I thought, wait a second. That's the story of the universe. There was no seed, but there was a womb, this spaciousness of naught. And miraculously, creation was born. That blew my mind. It was almost like God was screaming at us through the story. Just put it together. Jesus was miraculously conceived. Jesus is God. Oh, this universe is miraculous. I get it now. Thank you, divinely chosen, for your heart meet. Radhe Radhe. Then I started to wonder what other aspects of Jesus' life represent something about our universe. Religion can be fun when you let it. You just have to think outside the box sometimes. And thank you, John F., for your tiny. Yippee! And Nikki, thank you for your friendship necklace. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Lex, for your heart meet. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And thank you, Michelle, for your pair of roses. Radhe Radhe. Good night, Joshua Simon. And thank you, T. Relly, for your heart meet. Alicia. Thank you for your disco love. Hari Om Tat Sat. We like the mystical music in the background. I am happy to hear that. It is third eye chakra activation sound bath, I believe. And thank you, T-Relly, for your team bracelet. Hari Om Tat Sat. Robbie Bone, you ask, how would you address the fear of torture? That's a very interesting question, and I appreciate the vulnerability it takes to share that. It's not something I've really thought of, but we can explore it together. The concept of torture is, of course, very frightening. We want to not be forced into suffering. It's such a vulnerable time. We have no choice but to be vulnerable. This body is our dominion, and naturally we want to take the most care out of it. It's a very understandable worry. However, with a twist of irony, we are torturing our own mind by fearing it. You know? When we worry so much about something happening to us, we sometimes create the very thing we're being worried about. So, if you truly don't want to be tortured, then stop torturing your own mind by being afraid of it. And thank you, Shakira, for your heart me. Radhe Radhe. And Jensing, thank you for your disco love. Hari Om Tat Sat. My goodness, that's a very difficult to pronounce name. Wandering Sorcerer. You say, I say this with love. You remind me of a young Katya Zamolodchikova, but like with hair. Well, thank you for the love sentiments. Shakira, you share that you've been listening/watching videos on 2x speed lately, and you hope it's not ruining your attention. I would say it's increasing your ability to be attentive, because it takes a lot more conscious listening to be able to reflect on all of the words spoken at twice the speed you'd normally hear them. Chloe, you share that you worry a lot about your grandmother. Even though she's healthy, she is bedridden though. It's understandable that we have such care for those who are our family members. We want them to live a full life, especially since they've been contributive to our life, sometimes quite literally. However, I am sure that your grandmother would tell you to knock it off. Quit worrying about me. Love is always good. But I'm sure she'd want you to live your life without such worry. John, if you share one of your favorite quotes, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." That's a tricky one, but once it clicks, fear cannot touch you. No, you know what? I'm not gonna let you make me afraid. But carefulness, that's a part of us all. It's okay to be careful. Naturally, we know the value of a human life. Its potential is incomparable. So being careful to preserve the preciousness is good. But living as though there is a danger around every corner is bad. Child of reason, you share that Sri Yukteswara said to turn and face fear, and it'll disappear. I like that. Very wise sage he was. And thank you, Bobby Sue, for your quartet of roses. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, This Is My Show, for your paper crane. Hari Om Tat Sat. Aliak, you ask, am I an angel? Well, someone ring a bell. Maybe I can get my wings. Oh. No, nothing yet. Check back later, I guess. Auntie, you share that after all the healing I've done during this journey I've been on, I come to understand fear is an... I like how that's where the sentence cut off. Fear is an... I see you typed illusion. Fear is an illusion. The feeling of being afraid is very real. That's for sure. That sensation of preemptive suffering, very real. But what we're afraid of is usually something that our mind has made up, or something that someone else has conveyed that our mind has attached itself to, oftentimes without due cause, just out of overcautiousness. Thank you, Masa, for your 3 roses, heart me and team bracelet. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Lena, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. Aliak, you share that you didn't get the answer to your question. That's too bad. I enjoyed my answer. I said, somebody ring a bell. Maybe then I'll grow my wings, if I am. Guess they're not coming in yet. Saturnus says, 99% of what we fear never comes to be. Never give up the present moment, especially for something unreal. Well said. I just know how that can be interpreted by someone who's anxious, such as myself, as, okay, so it's the 1% that I have to really be afraid of. It's like the stories of those germs that, Febreze can get 99.999% of germs. But those 0.001%, my goodness, I really gotta be afraid of those guys, shouldn't I? Thank you, Lena, for another rose. Radhe, Radhe. J Bro, you share that you always miss my lives, but watch your YouTube videos. Wow, you are here now. That is for sure. Billy, you share like the babies who were born because condoms were only 99% effective. They just really wanted to be alive, I guess. Oh, and I'm happy that these warnings have paid off, Danny boy. I was worried that they might be too distracting, but if they can help even one person not be scammed, I suppose that's a small victory I'll take. Pun Bommy, you share that when you followed me, you got many friend requests from you till you realized it was fake. What can I say? Everyone wants to be me. Except for me. I'm just kidding. Faithful being, you ask, can I give you wisdom stories about motivation and focus? You need some insight on that. Certainly. One thing that I struggled with getting motivation for was cleaning up all the dishes in my room. And thank you, Douglas, for a whole galaxy. That is very humbling. Radhe, Radhe. I'm sure, like other people, sometimes the dishes in your room, once you get into that habit of eating in your bed or in your room, they start to pile up, especially when you're depressed. And so I remember looking at that pile of dishes and going, man, I wish I got into the habit of taking them out of my room more. And I would just think about it every time I walked past them. It'd be really great if I was in the habit of bringing them out to the kitchen and washing them. And then eventually the thought struck me. And it sounds so obvious when you say it out loud. But when it clicks, it clicks. You think, well, in order to get into that habit, I have to start doing it now. And it's like obvious when you put it like that. But in the moment, it's not that obvious. We think about habits as forming later. Eventually I'll get that habit. But in order to get that habit, I need to start putting in effort now. And it's so simple, but once you realize it, it makes putting the dishes out of your room that much easier. It's like, oh, I'm working on the habit of right now. Like any good habit, at first, it becomes a conscious practice. And eventually it becomes an unconscious practice. And that's what we're working towards. And that's what we want. We want it to be effortless. That we don't even think about it. After we're done eating, we bring it into the kitchen. But in order to get to that stage, we first have to go through the awkward stage of, intentionally doing it. And the intention is hard the first few times, maybe the first few dozen times, but eventually it becomes easier. G to infinity. You say your mother must be having a lot of missing dishes. Oh, I know, right? Yeah, she would ask, have you by happen to see the plate that's about this big, square? Thinking, oh yeah, it's 3 plates down on my bedside table. I had butter chicken on that Wednesday. Yeah, don't use that. Let me clean it for you first. Billy, you share that you're really great at planning things to do in the future. I just can never get around to doing it now. Right? I find it's the same way with creative projects, too. We have this great idea about how we can express ourselves. Oh, it's going to be great. Oh, it's going to look awesome. Then when we sit down to go and start, it's like, oh, maybe later. And thank you, Lena, for another pair of roses. Radhe, Radhe. So you ask, do you have a filter on? Yeah, I guess I do. I guess there is, if I put my finger in front of it. Someone pointed it out earlier in this live. Didn't notice it. But, it's fun. It's a nice change. Billy, you say that I get great ideas for videos to make for TikTok, but then don't do it. Story of my life. Thank you, J Brew, for your heart me. Radhe, Radhe. And I love the way you put that, sacred serenity. My discipline today will create my freedom tomorrow. I believe the ancient Vedas, speaking of them in the book we're reading, they talk about going in search for that which is at first bitter but turns sweet later, and avoiding that which at first is sweet but turns bitter later. It's unfortunate that the easy things in life, they taste great, feel good, but eventually they lead to something that doesn't feel good. But success always lies upstream. We gotta put in the effort in order to get that which lies ahead. Shani, you share that I am so calming, and is my family like that too? I think it depends on many factors, like the weather. Sometimes my mother is, go, 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 let's do stuff, yeah. It's very nice, but I wouldn't consider it calm necessarily. Other times she is zen, peaceful, full of love and stillness. Other times she is asleep, went for a 30-minute nap, woke up 6 hours later. What dimension is it? Earth. Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Lena, for another rose and a heart me. And thank you, Douglas, for your heart me. 28 team bracelets and 11 more. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Jared, for your heart me. And team bracelet too. Jai Sita Rama. Faithful being, you shared that sometimes you feel like you wake up in another dimension too. Something about naps. It's those times that you're not supposed to be sleeping, and then suddenly you wake up, and you have to remember what it even means to be human. Oh, that's right. 2 legs, 2 arms. Breathe in, breathe out. Oh, blinking. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. School exists. Oh. It all starts coming back to you. And thank you, Lena, for 2 team bracelets from you too. Radhe, Radhe. Shani, you share that you've been taking so many naps lately. You never wanted them before. It's quite alright. I'm sure your body needed it. And thank you, John F., for your 2 team bracelets and half dozen cheer you ups. Bobby Sue, you share that it's so hard to shake the fear of being unprepared for the future. See, the good news is that consider this present moment. Were you prepared for this moment to be the way it is now? Maybe one of you says yes, and you're a liar. And yet you're still here. You're still bearing this moment. You're not going anywhere. So take it from yourself, from your own experience, that you didn't have to be prepared for this moment to still be here, to still bear it. And thank you, John F., for your tiny yippee. And J Bro, thank you for your quintet of team bracelets. Radhe, Radhe. And Billy, thank you for your tiny. Yum, 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 yum. Billy, you share that you know you've grown up when naps become a reward instead of a punishment. Right? Nap time. No! Nowadays, if your boss tells you it's nap time, you'd think, oh God, why have you chosen me? I don't deserve this. so precious. Thank you. Grace, you ask, what happens when we dream? I like to take inspiration from the world's largest and most expensive science experiment, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland, underneath the border of France. This huge, many kilometer long circle smashes together protons, these subatomic particles at 99.9999999% the speed of light. There might be more nines, I haven't counted. So many protons every second. It generates an absurd amount of data. Something just off the top of my head, like probably a 4K movie's worth every second. Maybe even more than that. Then the question is, what do you do with all that data? Well, it becomes too much to process. So every few years they have to shut down this particle accelerator and redirect their energy towards the computers that actually process that data. So you could say that it sleeps. I think we do that too. During the day, there is so much information that we're receiving, but we're not consciously processing all of it. So we have to shut down at the end of a day and redirect our energy towards our internal computer called the subconscious that then processes all that data. And a neat way that this beautiful system uses to process it is to engage you in a vivid retelling of the information that you've experienced and how that new information interacts with the old that was already there. And this drama that unfolds in that interaction is the dream. And thank you, Kelsey, for your heart meet. Radhe Radhe. I like that, Steve. Sleep is your backup hard drive. And it's very kind of you to say, Howie. I am always on the prowl for new ways of looking at things. And you say, Yami, please, I need a prophecy. I hereby prophesize that within the next 3 months, you will get a tummy ache. And after said tummy ache, you will become a brand new person. In the wake of that pain, there will arise a gratitude for even the neutrality of sensation. I woke up without a tummy ache today. This is a great day. I remember when I used to be sick, too sick to go to school, I'd lay on the couch and I'd watch cartoons, iCarly. And I remember thinking, all these people, they don't even realize how good it feels to just not be sick. Here we are chasing pleasures when I'm sick on the couch, and I don't even want to feel good. I just want to feel not bad. or the cankers that I'd get in my mouth ulcers. It feels good to move your tongue around and not be in pain. There is a kind of bliss that we conveniently ignore that arises from simply not being in some amount of pain. Even a little pain is better than being in a lot of pain. Chelsea, you share that you wish your toddler saw the value in sleep. Understandable. Yeah. And the tricky thing with those younglings is if you did somehow manage to get them excited for sleep, maybe if you told them that dreams were another world that they go to, they'd be so excited for sleep that they'd frustrate themselves. Mommy, I can't sleep. I want to sleep so bad. Please help. Little rascals. And thank you, Bobby So, for your pair of finger hearts. Radhe, Radhe. And Jazz, thank you for your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roses. Billy, you share that you predict that every person on this live in 1 month will be 1 month older than they are today. Wow. You are saying that all of us will be spared from death. Well, thank you, Billy. That is very comforting to know that we can live without this fear. And thank you, Jazz, for your rosa. Radhe, Radhe. And Tattvam Asi, thank you for your quintet of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Jazz, for your heart, me too. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I like how you put the pronunciation for Kalkiji in your username. Kalkiji. Thank you, Space Dust. If only my ears were also pointy. Sadly, they are round. And Auntie, you had shared that you understand that point on pain as you have fibromyalgia, a nerve condition, but you use the sun because the heat helps me. I love that when it's a nice sunny day, you probably look so much at the positive and the warm light and the sunrise, and many of us may take that for granted, and for you it's even more special, and that's beautiful. And I'm happy that you shared that, as Billy seems to observe that the heat helps it. But they never noticed it till now, perhaps. Mommy, you are wondering, can you get a reading? I can crack open a book for you and let the universe give you a reading. Why don't we open from a random page of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. This is from where we get the concept of yoga. So many thousands of years ago. I see. We have opened to a very philosophical and dense part of the book. This Sanskrit mantra says, Tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. Tasya meaning of it, here. It is. Bhumi meaning the stage, here, gradual. And viniyoga means the application here, progression from vi, ni, and yuj to yog. Constraint is not all of a piece, but comprises, as we have seen, several stages. However, this schema serves only as a general model, and in actual practice, progression can vary. This seems to be the point which Vyasa is trying to make when he remarks that yoga itself is the teacher. Yoga eva upadhyayah. He adds the following well-known quotation from an unknown source. By yoga, yoga must be known. Through yoga, yoga advances. He who cares for yoga, in yoga rests forever. So we understand that the process of self-restraint, which is a critical part of the process of yoga, union, it does not come all at once, but we engage in it step by step, slowly denying the simple pleasures of life, and then eventually becoming more and more austere, less frugal. And the teaching itself is found in the very learning process that is this yoga of self-restraint. And thank you, this is my show, for your hanging lights. Radhe, Radhe. I'm happy you found some meaning in that, Auntie. Thank you, John F., for your trio finger hearts. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Shani, thank you for the You're Amazing. That's very beautiful. You are amazing too. Radhe, Radhe. And hello, Maria Capricorn. You are very welcome for the support. I am happy to hear that your endometriosis surgery must have gone well, hopefully well. If not, you would have come in here blazing, saying, how could you say it have gone well? It went terrible. So I'm very grateful that you being not angry with me means it must have went well. But you are very tired now. Understandable so. Steve, you are wondering, why do you say this is my show? That is the name of the username of one of our generous gifters. But if you are asking them why they have titled themselves as "This is my show," now that is not a question I can answer. And thank you, Maria, for your 20 roses. Radhe, Radhe. And hello, the only S. Good to see you too. Shani, you are wondering, what are your thoughts on experiencing no sleep the night before a full moon? Perhaps your body is very in tune with the lunar cycle, and that's a very beautiful thing. The full moon is certainly one that gives rise to lots of energy. It is said that more crimes are committed on a full moon. We get the term a lunatic or a loony off the name for the moon, our lunar satellite. Many creatures experience higher energy levels during a full moon. Consider, for example, baby turtles that use the light of the full moon to guide them on their way to the ocean. When the full moon comes, they're on high alert. It's go time, boys! Go, 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 go! Try not to get eaten by a seagull. Mr. Astrolabe, you say, Yam, perhaps we are all information. One very esoteric translation of the word karma is information. All this is said to be karma. From the clothing you're wearing, to the body in which you inhabit, the house, the trees, everything in your life. It's all an impression. Many quantum physicists, they like to ponder about the very concept of information. And there arose in information theory the famous saying, it from bit, that the it, the stuff that's existing here in the universe, might just be a physical representation of data. Not to say that we're running on a big computer, but that information itself, meaning, knowledge, is the fundamental substance itself. I remember that when physicists were playing around with their theories and equations concerning black holes and studying the information paradox, if information is always conserved, and that which goes in a black hole cannot escape, then doesn't a black hole just eat up all the information? Would we really have no knowledge of what went into the black hole? What is the relationship between information and the black hole? And through some calculations that I won't pretend to understand, they found that the surface area of a black hole was proportional to the information it contained. It's a weird correlation. Surface area and information. The more surface area the black hole has, that much more information it has. And it's a big consequence. I believe that Stephen Hawking interpreted this to mean that you could consider what's on the inside of a black hole to be like a hologram of what's on the surface, a projection. People who analyze the equations of our whole universe see that there's many similarities between black holes and the entirety of the universe. Maybe we too are like projections from that information that's just on the horizon. You could think about the analogy of a book. The more surface area the page has in the book, the more information you can fit on it. I was listening to a lecture by Sarva Priyananda, Swami Sarva Priyananda, of the Ramakrishna Math. And he says that if we go into the Vedas, we find that information does play a critical role in Hindu thought as the very substance of this universe, but that there's one thing even more fundamental than it. It from bit from chit. What is chit? Chit means consciousness. From consciousness, meaning, knowledge, information arises. And then from all of that, the very stuff arises. This is not so different than the three-body doctrine of causal, subtle, or astral, and physical or gross. The gross body arises from the subtle arises from the causal is the chit, the subtle is the bit, and the physical is the it. Thank you. This is my show for your hanging lights a few minutes ago. Did I thank you for these hanging lights already? I think I did. Do forgive me. Yes. And thank you, Sack Mackie Mac. That was the new gift for the confetti. Radhe Radhe. Thank you. How much would a chit bit of a chit could bit it? I commend you for that, Saturnus. That is true, Echo Leaf. The Buddha did question the Vedas, or Brahmins of his time, because he knew no caste, no fate. I believe the Buddha questioned the ritualistic aspects of the Vedas primarily. Because the Vedas are like a warehouse. You can go to them for many things. From ritual all the way up to liberation. The parts of the Vedas which form the philosophical treatise on existence, the Upanishads, or the Brahma Sutras, the Buddha did not reject. The indirect proof of this is that the term samsara and nirvana come from those layers of the Vedas. And thank you for that reminder, Sky Guardian. The Karma Kanda and the Jana Kanda. Yeah. Steve, you ask, did I ever meet Stephen Hawking? I'm curious why you ask that, but no. No, I have not. Though I would have loved to pick his brain on his insights about black holes. There's something very archetypally masculine about a black hole. Like how there's something archetypally feminine about desiring to photosynthesize. If I could just absorb the energy from the sun, life would be great. There's something archetypally masculine about the study of black holes. If I could just understand what goes on inside a black hole, life would be great. "31 Planes of Existence." You share that I had mentioned one time that dark matter travels backwards in time. Do you think there's multi-D? I assume it's dimension. It's the rest of that word. Not dark matter, but antimatter. Like how in the Pythagorean theorem, sorry, no, not the Pythagorean theorem, the quadratic formula. That the solutions for a general quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. There's two solutions that you get, 1 plus, 1 minus. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Likewise, some very complicated equations for matter, particles, they have a plus-minus solution. The plus we call as matter, the minus we call as antimatter. Well, it doesn't really matter if we call the negative matter or the positive. It's like the North and South Pole. We could have called the North Pole the South Pole and the South the North Pole. It just changes what word we use. But it's an arbitrary choice. However, in the universe, it doesn't seem arbitrary, and that's one of the big mysteries. That there seems to be a lot more matter than antimatter. In fact, hardly any antimatter. Of course, there is antimatter. There's some of it coming out of your fire detector on the ceiling, which uses a very interesting physical interaction with americium, the radioactive element named after America, and it releases radiation. And if smoke gets between the radioactive source and the detector, then some interaction happens. I don't know. But it completes some circuit and it starts beeping. Nonetheless, that source of radioactivity in your house emits a very tiny amount of antimatter as well, which is fun. So it's a very real thing. Also in PET scans, positron emission somethingography. I forget what the T stands for. The word positron is antimatter. It's the antimatter version of an electron. But the most interesting thing, in my opinion, about antimatter is that mathematically it behaves exactly the same as regular matter, except that it runs backwards in time. Now, that's not necessarily to say that it's experienced the future. It's to say that if you run all the equations on antimatter by plugging in the same values for regular matter, but just swapping the time component, then you get exactly the behavior that's predicted. This is due to something called CPT symmetry, charge parity time symmetry, that if you swap any of those three, then it's the same as swapping the other two. If you swap charge and parity, if you get an electron, swap its charge and its parity. That is, make it positive instead of negative, and make it right-handed instead of left-handed. Then it'll behave exactly the same as if we just swapped the time direction that it was traveling. And that's how you make antimatter. What do we do with this theoretical knowledge? I don't know. But you had then asked, does this mean there are multi-dimensions? It's a good question. And the very long answer is I don't know. Thank you, Paige, for your rose. Radhe Radhe. And John Simon, thank you for your heartmeet. Hari Om Tat Sat. Rio, you ask, do you stare at your third eye when you're going to sleep? That's an interesting question. I'll have to see what I do. No pun intended. And I'll get back to you. If I do, it's not consciously. I like to just chant my mantra in my head when I'm going to sleep. That puts me to sleep like a baby, like my lullaby. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. You share that you've been doing it lately, and it's been giving you some crazy lucid dreams. I bet. Anything we try to do consciously, intentionally, can allow for some alertness to follow into our dream state. Now, Whitney G, you had been very determined to ask me, can I say the H-A many R's and an M that you say with the rolled R's? Harm. Harm. I don't know if you were asking for a specific thing. I say a couple things. I say Hari Om Tat Sat. Maybe that's what you were wondering. Hari means that which steals the hearts of even enlightened beings. Enlightened beings, they say, I have no use for this world. It is mithya. It's not real. Then the divine feminine comes. And then these enlightened beings, they go, okay, maybe form isn't all that bad. You have my heart now. And thank you, Douglas, for your shiny air balloon. Your marvelous confetti. And 20 team bracelets. Radhe, Radhe. Thank you. And thank you, John Simon, for your heart me a few minutes ago. And 31 planes. Thank you for your hand hearts. Radhe, Radhe. Douglas, you ask if I see your messages? Yes, and I very much appreciate your enthusiasm. Happy to have you here. Jared, you were wondering if I've been to a university? And if so, what did I study? Or do I just read a lot? Well, I did go to the University of Victoria for a few years, but I didn't actually study the things that I'm talking about in this live, at least not during my classroom visits. These were things that I was fascinated by, and I was intending to research them when I finally got to that part in my educational journey. But I was so excited that I didn't have the patience to get there. I couldn't wait. And thank you, Luis, for your 10 roses. Radhe, Radhe. Valvasa, you ask, what do you believe your purpose in life is? Sometimes I have to take pauses so I don't burst out laughing. Now that's unrelated to your question, Valvasa. What is my purpose in life, in my opinion? All I know is that everything I need is with me right now. All that I have to attend to is before me right now. So with that, there is no future time that I believe will define who I am. I feel purposeful living in this moment. Hello, Suchi. Luis, you are wondering, how can we open our hearts to treat animals as equals? It's a beautiful question. If you spend time with an animal, naturally you begin to learn things from them. I would recommend that to anyone who wants to deepen their connection with animals, all you have to do is spend more time with them. Thank you, Jared, for the it's a dancing beaver and sunglasses. That one definitely gets me. Radhe, Radhe. Billy, you share that I believe the purpose of life for everyone is to experience joy. It's ironic because I spend way too much time not being joyful. I don't think anyone's gonna blame you for that. It's not easy being joyful. And at the same time, it's ironic because when you're joyful, everything becomes easy. It's a beautiful inversion of perspective when you realize this, that it is from joy that we become better humans, rather than trying to become better so that we may experience joy. We think, if I just did such and such, then I may be happy. But it starts with being happy, and then you may go and do great things. And thank you, Mount St. Kotal Organics, for your trio of rosas. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Jared, for your 2 bubble teas too. Yahoo! Felt like letting out a little Yahoo there. And Bobby Sue, thank you for your pair of roses. Radhe, Radhe. Zach Mackie Mac, you share that Forrest Gump says, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Spoken like a true sage. The outcome is never guaranteed, but we can guarantee for ourselves that we apply ourselves in the way that we can to the best of our abilities. And that's enough. Alice, you shared that you ordered The Power of Thoughts today. Well, I hope that it comes in very handy for you. I enjoyed reading it. It's a very good book. And Saturnus, you clarify. It was actually his mother who said that. He was always quoting her. That's beautiful. Mr. Mate, you are wondering, do I believe in destiny? I believe that the macroscopic set of events in our life, this is not in our control. Whether the sun will rise and it will set, that is destined. But in this moment, you are free to choose what you want to take out of today. Whether you go to sleep feeling like tomorrow is a new day, or you feel like you made a mistake, that is always up to you. We can learn from our day or be more closed off by it, regardless of the circumstances in our day, which may have been destined. It is entirely in our charge what we choose to get out of it. And thank you, Sack Macky Mac, for your cake. Radhe Radhe. And Mount St. Gotol Organics, thank you for your owl. Hari Om Tat Sat. Auntie, you're asking, do you think you have an old soul? I'll have to ask my mother for the receipt. We'll see. I believe that this moment is eternal, and what we call as ourselves, this body, this mind, just like the ship of Theseus, it is always changing. However, when a person is very in tune with that eternity pervading them, we call them an old soul. Not necessarily because they are older than the rest, but because what they are in tune with is much more ancient. I love that sentence. Jesus, you say, a micro fractal of the macrocosm, fractal consciousness. High vibrations in those words, that's for sure. And hello, Nancy. I saw you snuck in. Alright, this one's for you, Echo Leaf. How about a verse from the pocket, Pema Chodram? This is 18, our human situation. Also, the 3 marks of existence. The Buddha taught that there are 3 principal characteristics of human existence: impermanence, egolessness, and suffering, or dissatisfaction. I'll pause there. One of the most humbling and refreshing things about the Buddhist perspective is that its fundamental tenet starts with the acknowledgement of suffering. Whereas another tradition might first and foremost glorify God, the Buddhists say, that's great, but suffering, that's real. The lives of all beings are marked by these 3 qualities. Recognizing these qualities, impermanence, egolessness, and dissatisfaction, to be real and true in our own experience, helps us to relax with things as they are. I feel gratitude to the Buddha for pointing out that what we struggle against all our lives can be acknowledged as ordinary experience. Life does continually go up and down. People and situations are unpredictable, and so is everything else. Everybody knows the pain of getting what we don't want. Saints, sinners, winners, losers. I feel gratitude that someone saw the truth and pointed out that we don't suffer this kind of pain because of our personal inability to get things right. When I begin to doubt that I have what it takes to stay present with impermanence, egolessness, and suffering, it uplifts me to remember that there is no cure for the facts of life. This teaching on the 3 marks of existence can motivate us to stop struggling against the nature of reality. We can stop harming others and ourselves in our efforts to escape the alternation of pleasure and pain. We can relax and be fully present for our lives. Breathe you. You share. When trying to silence the mind, who is the producer of the thoughts that are silenced? It is the mind's very role to think. And there is no convincing it to stop thinking. The more you try not to think, the more you end up thinking. If I say, don't think about a strawberry rhubarb pie with an egg wash on the top, making the crust golden brown, don't think about how sweet it would be to eat it. Don't think about the crumbly texture. Don't think about the juiciness in each bite. Now you're really thinking about it, aren't you? So, what is this silence that meditators speak about if it is not found in the mind? Haven't you ever noticed that on a busy street with buses barreling by, maybe taxi cabs honking, people walking, someone laughing, a baby crying, a plane going overhead, you're in the middle of all this action, and still there is another kind of silence. It's possible to be hearing all this noise and still recognize silence. There is a stillness amidst the movement, like a ballet dance. The very smoothness of it all provokes stillness. We talk about space as something that exists up there. Some scientists say the Kármán line, something like 1,000 kilometers up or so. After that point, the atmosphere stops and then space begins. Well, reality isn't so well defined like that. We are already in space. You just have to zoom out. Rightly said, Billy. So the space is always there. There's just also other stuff. It's the other stuff that we think takes away space. But no, the space is still there. It's inside of what we're saying fills it. Like if you paint a painting, the canvas doesn't go anywhere. It might seem to be hidden. Similarly, the kind of stillness that is sought through meditation is not in the elimination of thoughts. It's in the recognizing of the space which pervades it. And hello, Bhante. Nice to see you here. Here you've got a nice prayer for us. Abandon complicated thinking. Everything that is not everything already. Use the word everything. Everything. May I be at peace. May I understand Buddhism. May I forgive myself. May I abandon complicated thinking of self. May I be free from anger. May I receive nothing from everything immediately, already. Namo Buddhaya. Real, you had asked, do you find being alive confusing? Being alive can be very confusing when we feel pressured to try to understand it all. Fortunately, there is no necessity to understand it all in order to just be. Existence continues to be without knowledge of it. Its very isness is the knowledge needed. Anything else overcomplicates it. And thank you, Felix, for your pair of finger hearts. And a tiny. Yippee! Rio, you share. Like the fact we're conscious blows my mind. I know it seems all so simple, but like what is going on? Yeah, agreed. Reminds me of what Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. In the beginning, before heaven and earth was, the nameless. Whether one sees to the core of life or the surface passionately, wonder names them both. From wonder, everything begins. By the way, everyone, in case you are interested, our Sanghi Bante Parabanyo He is an American Buddhist monk, which you can find on many platforms, I'm sure, just by going to his profile. And one that we've had on our live stream many times before. And no expectations, since this world is very impermanent, but he has invited me to expand my comfort zone and maybe leave my home and see the beauty of India and its traditions up close, as I have mentioned before. Junior Keek, you asked, have I ever accidentally fallen asleep while meditating? Yes. Yeah, there are many times during the day in which it is preferable to meditate so you don't fall asleep. They recommend meditating before a meal rather than after. You eat a good meal and you start meditating. You fall asleep. Or right before going to bed, you try meditating, but it can be a good way to go to sleep. The Dalai Lama once said that sleep is the best meditation. And Sak Maki Mak, you ask, is this exactly how you are when the camera goes off? Well, I have no audience before me to respond to questions, so there is a kind of stillness and silence. I take a nice deep breath in, relax my shoulders, and then get up since I've been sitting for so long. And then I go and see my family. And because I've been on the speaking end for so many hours, afterwards I feel like it's good to balance with just listening. So if my other householders are around, I'll just listen to how their day's been, make dinner. So there is a shift in vibe coming from me, definitely. That said, I do strive to be peaceful without a boundary defining it. I don't think it would be very authentic for me if I was peaceful during my live streams, and then afterwards I started yelling at the mailman. So, not that I have any way of proving that to you. I do try to maintain some level of peace off live stream as well, of course. Thank you, Hybrid Jen, for your disco love a minute ago. Radhe Radhe and Bhante, thank you for your disco ball and sweet memories. Namo Buddhaya. And a forever Rosa. And a fire. Thank you. A disco love as well, I see. It'd be nice if there was a gong. Be a good sound to play after a donation. And thank you, Hybrid Chen, for your finger heart too. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, MJ, for your hand hearts. Was that high enough for you to see? Jai Sitaram. And much love to you, Aquarius lady. And thank you, Billy, for your friendship necklace and disco love. Radhe Radhe. Wolverine, you ask if I've read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. It sounds familiar, but I'll say no, I have not. Maybe I could get a baby gong, says Auntie. Perhaps. I did see one at the store the other day, actually, which is weird, because it's a very specific thing, but it was more for show than for sound. It did come with a little mallet, and I hit it, but it didn't really make a gong sound. It's like hitting a piece of metal. Nothing interesting. And thank you, Lily, for your heart me and Tiny Tiny. Yippee! And yes, not to speak on Bhante's behalf, Tatvamasi, but if I recall correctly, Bhante is it's like an alternative to Bhikkhu, which, means Buddhist monk. And thank you, Linda, for your octet of roses. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, MZ, for your blessings. Like a prism, I hope to reflect them back on all of you. Or refract them, I suppose. A mirror reflects. A prism refracts. Gaia, you ask, what is my favorite sounds? I'm very much lulled to sleep by sounds of nature such as rain, wind, even storms, which are often chaotic. I enjoy hearing birds chirping, maybe when I'm not trying to sleep. But I've been learning to love them. I do remember a few years ago waking up 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and hearing the birds chirp. Some of them are loud. They really want to be heard. And you could feel the anger arising in me. Like I was just ready to just fight them or something. But there was this release that came that's like, I might as well find them beautiful. And so since then I've been learning to not be so angry with how the world is supposed to look like, sound like, feel like. Because ultimately, what prevents me from peace is my own resistance to it, rather than its inherent nature. And thank you, Sacred Serenity, for your quintet of roses, a pair and a trio. Radhe Radhe. And such a wonderful addition you share, Asgard. The world gave you anger for a reason. There can be no peace without the knowledge of anger. Very wise and validating. Thank you. Gregor, you share that you literally thought that you heard a bird whistle like an actual tune one day. That's awesome. They do it when no humans around. Start whistling jingle bells. And you go, ha! I gotcha! And they start going back to more random tunes. And thank you, Hybrid Jen, for your trio of roses. Radhe, Radhe. Dragonfly, you share that you fall asleep to true crime. That's beautiful. It is like feeling validated that the mind is so multifaceted and that its depths are mysterious. And Gregor, you share that you think it was a mockingbird, so it had a big repertoire. That's true. Like a jukebox with wings. Dragonfly, you share that you think it's the pace and tone of the narrators. That could very well be it too. Billy, you share that your husband just got home and said he got you coffee ice cream. That does sound good. Magic school bus dropout. I love your name. You share that you now use the birds as almost your alarm clock. They don't let you go back to bed. Nature's alarm clock. I like that. Kelsey, you ask, do you know about Indian gods and goddesses? He'd love to hear about your favorites that resonate with you. Well, Kelsey, there are so many of them. I would love to learn more and more of them. It is said in the Vedas that the more names you know of God, the more protected you are. My favorites are Radha and Krishna. They are just so beautiful. Their names, their forms, their leelas, their mantras. Of course, there are so many different forms, and they each have beauty in them. Such is why on my altar I keep a few different forms, and I can even show you. There is Krishna. I've wrapped him in Tulasi. There's Shiva. Here he has his Rudraksha beads below him, and his son, a little Ganesh. There is Mother Kali, and her slightly less angry epithet, Durga. And there is Hanumanji, the monkey god, and a Shiva lingam behind him. And I believe this yantra is dedicated to Saraswati, the goddess of learning, knowledge, music. So I do have much love for the various Hindu gods. And thank you, Lola, Cherry Cola, for your tiny nippy. And thank you, Christine, for your flowers. Hari Om Tat Sat. Billy, I see you are responding to someone who maybe didn't get their question read. Maybe I can scroll up to find it. From Rain, you asked, have you noticed that negative things come easily and positive things are naturally harder to obtain? I believe it's a blessing that it works out like this. This universe is arranged so mercifully that there is an intelligence inherent in it, in that the feeling of accomplishment is important for fulfillment. To be fulfilled, we must feel like we have put in our best effort. So if the things that we wanted to achieve came easy, then we would be devoid of our sense of accomplishment, and with that, lacking fulfillment. In that perspective, I believe that it's a blessing that the positive things are more difficult than the negative things. And that's a beautiful observation that you've made. Hello, La Rock. And thank you, Lily, for your trio of rosas. Radhe, Radhe. And Sapphire, you had mentioned that you love Lakshmi. She is so beautiful. Yeah, sitting on her big lotus flower. And Bante, you are wondering if I can share the name of this audio. Yes, I can. I think I may even be able to fit it in chat if I just copy it. It's from the YouTube channel Meditative Mind, which has many different meditation music choices. Let's see if that fit. I think I missed 1/4 at the beginning of 448 Hertz, but it's third eye chakra activation sound bath. And good night, Aquarius lady. And Rain, you had added that, yeah, you just think it's so interesting. It's not a bad thing though, just wanted another perspective. Isn't it funny In order to eat healthy, we have to avoid the things that do taste really good, and avoid the things and eat the things that don't necessarily taste that good. If we want toned muscles, we have to go do exercises that don't feel good, and avoid sitting on the couch, which does feel good. When we want healthy relationships with others, we have to avoid getting angry at them, which does feel good, and become humble and apologize, which doesn't feel good. But it is about honoring long-term accomplishment rather than short-term gratification. Tattvam Asi, you ask, without this live, how can the Yamali? It's a funny portmanteau, always gets me. Be connected. Well, I don't advertise it much. However, I do have a Discord channel. Right now it's probably like the Wild West, because I haven't been attending to it, and shamefully I must admit I haven't been in contact with my moderators either. However, it's still there, linked in the link tree in my bio. It's not a bad place to be, I just warn you that it's not being moderated at the moment, so it might be a little more chaotic than what you're used to. But I'm open to other ideas for connecting as well, maybe a WhatsApp chat. Magic School Bastrapa, you share that you try to always treat people with kindness, no matter the circumstances. And Bante, you had mentioned doing meritorious good deeds is essential path of everything that is already everything. Everything. Period. Exclamation mark. Question mark. Everything. Magic School Bus, you had added that you also believe people treat others the way they want to be treated. The golden rule. Sometimes we don't even know the way we want to be treated. We may avoid being criticized out of fear that our character is being diminished. Other times, with courage, we can open ourselves up to being allowed to experience any kind of approval or disapproval from others, and regardless of the feeling that it creates within us, positive or negative, it can deepen our spaciousness, our presence, simply by being able to bear it. Bharami, that Sanskrit word of the day. I am bearing it. Ra'id Hanun al-Sabah. You ask, why does my God ask his or her followers to kill the unbelievers in him or her? Perhaps it is possible to interpret these verses from a more metaphysical perspective, that it is not about bringing harm to others as it is eliminating the doubt within you. We could call parts of ourselves unbelievers, and to kill those parts of ourselves means to dissolve that doubtingness. In other words, cultivate faith, bring aliveness to the believers, just to rephrase it into a positive. The Sufi saints, they do a great job at interpreting these truths a little more openly, and I would encourage taking a look at that perspective. And thank you, Babiso, for your quartet of fires you sent a few minutes ago. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Chloe, for your trio of roses. Jai Sita Ram. And thank you, Lily, for your pairs of rosas and quartets of fires. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Babisu, thank you for your pair of fires. And Gabby, for your baker's dozen of roses. Now, Diane, you ask very passionately, how did you get to where you are in your spiritual journey, and how long did it take? From one perspective, you could say that it took forever. From another perspective, you could say that I was already there. But a more practical answer is that through my 22 years of life in this body, there have been many circumstances that have happened, and through nothing less than a miracle, eventually there was a discernment to utilize all this suffering to come to some understanding. For example, even a few months ago, during bouts of anxiety that I experienced, at some point during that suffering, there was a determination made to be selfless in the face of all that inner turmoil. That even if the mind is chaotic and the world is unpredictable, I still have the power to do something selfless. Like pick myself up from the floor, walk into my kitchen and ask my mother how her day has been. Something simple like that. It starts small and then it grows bigger from there. And thank you, Erica, for your rose a minute ago. Radhe, Radhe. Your local detective. Alright, Sherlock Holmes. You share that you are studying for your learner's driver's license and you are quite nervous. Well, naturally, it's a big responsibility to be behind the wheel of a 1-ton block of metal and human engineering. I think that nervousness is a consequence of how precious your life is and those who are on the road, and so the test is made out to be quite serious, so that you value the experience with cautiousness. Also, I'm sure you are nervous for the possibilities that will be opened up once you are no longer constrained to what is in walking distance. Your world really opens up. And there is also the timeline of being young and not having to wait until you take the test again if you fail it. But regardless, although the outcome of our actions may be out of our control, we can mitigate potential losses simply by putting in our best effort now. If you have studied as well as you can, then you can rest easy knowing that you have fulfilled your potential. And thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. Hello, Chloe. You ask, how have I been today? It was a lot for you today. Not bad at all, but just a lot. Well, I've been alright. Thank you. There has been lots of emotions today, it seems. Heavy words spoken. And it's quite alright to feel that drained quality within us. The feeling of having exerted lots of energy. It's a sign that you are alive. And I thank you for sharing that. And thank you, L-Wave Rider, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. And Mia, thank you for your rose too. Jai Sita Ram. And Gregor, you share that the drained feeling will remind you later how nice the fullness of energy feels. That's for sure. And how much potential we have when full of that presence. And thank you, Inevitable, for your trio of roses. And Diane, thank you for your rose too. Now I hear my background music looping, which means that we've been here for almost 3 hours. So within the next half an hour, we'll be wrapping things up. Echo Leaf, you asked, do you dismiss anyone who disagrees with you? My moderators here know that if someone is disagreeing with me, even if they're expressing it in a non-constructive way, they are allowed to be here. However, very rarely, if that then gets targeted towards the Sangha, we will set up a boundary by muting them for the duration of the live. And that's the harshest punishment that arises. They're allowed to come back, they're allowed to speak their mind again, just for the rest of the live, they're muted. Only if their negativity becomes directed towards fellow members. Because I can't guarantee that everyone is going to be as open as I am to receiving criticism, I am happy to receive it directly by grace of just having gone through so much of it. I now understand that there is no point in trying to minimize it. It's like playing whack-a-mole. You try to quiet one person, and then another person speaks up. And if one disagrees with your perspective, oh, of course, we all have different experiences. And I make room for differences. I don't want people to become copies of me. I think that'd be very lonely. And thank you, Eve, for your kind sentiments. Will we do a little chant later again? Asked Gregor. Yeah, I think we can. And maybe in honor of Bhante for dropping by, we can do Om Mani Padme Hum. But before we get there, there's a few other segments just on closing. For example, my question of the day today was, what potential do you see in yourself? And you are very welcome to interpret the question in any way you deem fit. I'm not looking for a wrong answer, nor a right answer. Infinity, says Sacred Serenity, and the infinite, says Saturnus. The blessing of finishing, says Bhante. leadership, says Heather. And Lily, you share that as you've said before, you see the potential to always expand yourself, the potential of growth. And growing through it all, says Justine. Not letting all these circumstances drag you down. Continue growing. And contempt for being alone, says your local detective. Yeah. There is a difference between feeling lonely and being alone. As one of our Sangis, Amanda, shared with us this week. Billy, you share the potential to let go of your fear, anger, hurt from your childhood, and become more loving to yourself and others. That is very honorable. Rain, you share the potential to continue experiencing newness. And Dominique, you share that you're not sure it's potential, more just a desire to prove yourself wrong. The virtue of humility is in high regard. The potential to be empty, says DYJ. Yeah. Emptiness is the greatest potential. Reminds me of the duality between Shaktiman and the Shakti. The Shaktiman is the potential, and the Shakti is the potency, that which arises from the potential. The Shaktiman we might call as the source, or God, or in Dzogchen Buddhism, the Dharmakaya, the very field in which this experience takes place. The field is the Shaktiman, the potential. But the experience, that is the impermanent Shakti, always changing, expressing itself through various potencies. And MJ, you say that you see the potential to release evermore. That's a good verb. To release. So much of spirituality is not about getting anything, but letting go of everything. Bhante recommends release desire by using the word everything. Everything. All right. Thank you all for attending to my question of the day. Many insightful answers on the different possibilities that are available in this moment. Happy to become more aware of them. One more thing before we close, and that's our reading from the book that our lovely viewer Sky Guardian has sent for the benefit of all of us. It's his own guru's book by Swami Taratmanandaji in his experience about India and how he became a sannyasi, a monk, a renunciate, and what monkhood looks like for him. Here we've already started the introduction. We had just finished on how, like how in India, the markets are often very chaotic. Some people selling things for a ridiculous markup. There are many entrepreneurs who might scam you. So too the spiritual landscape is filled with a variety of scam artists, entrepreneurs piggybacking, and some genuine, authentic sellers. I warily joined the throng in the spiritual marketplace. Most of my fellow seekers came from India's many provinces. Some were highly educated. Others were simple village folk. Western seekers like myself still come to India, but in smaller numbers than in the 1960s, when rock and roll, drugs, and the mystical East were all part of a youthful fad. Certainly, all seekers do not fit into a single mold. Some seek answers to their fundamental questions about life. Others want to know God or how to merge with the whole in mystical union. Some seek comfort and blessings at the feet of great saints, and some are simply curious. Like many others, I explored India's spiritual landscape on a personal quest for self-fulfillment. I enjoyed rapturous discoveries that evoked tears of joy, and I suffered horrible disillusionments with bitter tears of despair. In venerated traditions, I found both incredible beauty and ridiculous excess. Among contemporary teachers, I found wise men and women of great compassion, as well as self-serving opportunists who assumed a holy guise to prey upon the desperate and gullible. On my first visit to India, I experienced intense culture shock. Everything was so different. Customs, climate, food, dress, language, standard of living. I had never traveled to a third world country before, and my initial trip seemed more like visiting an alien planet. I struggled to adapt, to learn the customs, and to understand the complexities of the Hindu culture. I was fortunate to meet several sympathetic and knowledgeable people who patiently helped me become intimate with India and her people. I felt privileged to enter so deeply into a culture of great antiquity and beauty. While exploring India's spiritual landscape, I constantly looked through two different sets of eyes. One pair belonged to a seeker who was eager to find answers to heartfelt questions. The other pair to a skeptic who maintained a critical, rational perspective at all times. My background in engineering and computer science had molded my thinking. I was not inclined to believe in anything. Even today, I remain firmly established in this orientation. I have never been satisfied with mere faith. Instead, I want to know, to experience, to understand fully and directly. I think one's intellect and common sense need never be abandoned in a spiritual quest. Objective thinking protects one from being deluded, like a compass that steers one away from trouble and towards the goal. In my travels, I met quite a few conservative Hindus who regarded everything ancient as good and everything modern as bad. Such people are inclined to unquestioningly accept anything traditional. Their attitude reminded me of the Roman Catholic Church during the Middle Ages, when it insisted that the earth was flat in spite of contemporary scientific evidence to the contrary. Since I was not reared in a Hindu family, I never acquired such biases. I exercised my judgment to evaluate everything to the best of my ability. I embraced what was personally meaningful and left the rest behind. On the other hand, I did not want an excess of caution or skepticism to prevent me from penetrating deeply into this spiritual world. I did not go as a scientific researcher whose motto was, "Look but don't touch." My goal was personal, so I found it helpful to immerse myself as thoroughly as possible. After years of meditation and spiritual study in America, I went to India several times, staying a total of 2 years. I adopted the dress of a religious student and traveled to sacred places, studying in ashrams and practicing various spiritual disciplines. I was taught to read and write Sanskrit, the language of the scriptures. I learned to speak some Hindi, the main language used throughout much of North India. I traveled in the company of fellow seekers, mostly Indian, many of whom I am deeply indebted to for their guidance and support. Those years of seeking proved to be far more fruitful than I could possibly have imagined. My journey, following paths charted by the ancient sages, culminated in a profound inner transformation. At length, I found what I was looking for. This journey also happened to lead to my ordination as a sannyasi, a Hindu monk, for the reasons that will be made clear in the coming pages. In the years following my ordination, I have been delighted and privileged by the opportunity to guide many others along these same paths. At the suggestion of my students, I started to write a book about what I discovered. I wanted to make the vision of the sages completely accessible to all, including Western-born readers. For this reason, I initially tried to extract these teachings from their Indian cultural context and present them in a straightforward, culturally neutral manner. I abandoned the project before this book was even half written. The lifeless chapters were boring and tedious. By distilling the teachings of the sages to bare essentials, I had transformed their marvelous poetic vision of fullness into dry, abstract, philosophical concepts. I concluded that their teachings could be far better conveyed by preserving their cultural context. So, I started to write again, this time presenting these teachings in the context of my own spiritual search in India. This book is the story of my journey, but its purpose is not merely to tell how some American computer engineer became a Hindu monk. Some of the most profound insights of the sages are explored in this book, interleaved with stories about India's spiritual subculture. As you vicariously explore these realms in the coming chapters, you will find yourself traveling the same paths tread by the ancient sages, and you will have opportunities to discover what they discovered. So, let us conclude our reading of The Roar of the Ganges by Swami Taratmanandaji, and we shall continue it tomorrow. And that's quite alright, Jackie. Happy to have you here, even for this moment. And much love to you, Diane. And thank you, Sid, for your rose. And Tatvamasi, thank you for your quartet of roses. Radhe, Radhe. And MJ, thank you for your pair of tiny dinies. Yippee! So, as promised, before we end the live, we'll do some chanting. Today we have selected the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. So, without further ado, I can put it in chat as well, or actually better yet, I can remake the text of today's question of the day. There. Om Mani Padme Hum. And you know what? I think I can even put on my favorite version of it in the background quickly. We won't do the whole 30 minutes or however long it is. Let's see. Oh, this is an advertisement.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
mani padme hum, mani padme hum, mani padme hum, mani padme hum. All right. I believe that was 108 times, which is the sacred number. And oh, what is this? Might as well put this on for the rest of the video. Although I'm sure that the timbre, the treble of the flute might be a little louder, so I'll turn it down equivalently. Now, Dylan, you are wondering, what makes 108 a sacred number? For a variety of reasons, but my personal favorite is because you can fit 108 moons in between the Earth and the Moon. You can fit 108 suns between the Earth and the Sun. And you can fit 108 Earths across the diameter of the Sun. So 108 represents where we are in this universe, in our Earth, Moon, and Sun system. Because of that ratio between distance to diameter being 108, that is part of the reason we have solar eclipses, which is a very beautiful part of our existence here. Thank you, Billy, for that bubble tea you sent whilst I read, or whilst I chanted, I suppose. Radhe, Radhe. And Youngblood, thank you for your trio of tiny dinies. Jai Sita Rama. Thank you, Diane, for your quartet of roses. And Kona Girl, thank you for your quintet of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. Lily, you share that you wear your malas daily now. Since you made them, you feel a slight difference. That's lovely. Yeah. I know that many Buddhists wear mala beads from the seeds of the Bodhi tree. And thank you, Tatvamasi, for your quintet of TikToks. And thank you, MJ, for your 10-finger heart. Yes, I can lower the background. It's very, very loud, isn't it? Relatively speaking. It's very sensitive, my mouse, on the volume control. And thank you, Elwave Writer, for your flowers. And I'm happy that you enjoyed the chanting, John Simon. And have I heard of koans before? They're like neat little Buddhist sayings. I like the way you phrase that, yes. My personal favorite is, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Alright. Now before we go tonight, allow me to offer this like a lotus petal at the feet of Sri Radha Krishna. And if you wanted to see the recording of this live or any other past live, if you click on the link tree in my bio, I've linked to my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel where I upload all of these. Additionally, on my ASMR YouTube channel, Yamsox ASMR, we've been reading through the Bhagavad Gita, whispered with rain sounds in the background, and I just realized I don't need to have that up anymore. A few days ago I also released a new kind of video on that channel, which is sorry, I'm smiling at Kelsey, who is adding some insight on the nature of that koan. But yes, the new video on my ASMR channel is one that talks you down from a panic attack. In case that's something that you experience, maybe in other forms like an anxiety attack or existential dread, you're welcome to save that video for a time in which you would like some experience that I may share from my own experience with anxiety. And if I just pull this a little closer, on my microphone I've been holding these Yamsox, which are merchandise that I sell on my store section of the Linktree in my bio. These are very cozy and have yams on them. Never expected. However, it is appreciated as it helps fund my aspiration to go to India later this summer. And it's something that you can get in return for supporting me physically, in case that's something you value. Besides that, there's also the mascot of our life. Our spiritual mascot, that is the tiny Diny, who says, "Yippee!" A good quality took. So with that, I thank you all for your presence in this Sangha as fellow Sangis. And thank you, Julian, for your heart me. Sasha, thank you for your pair of roses. And Dr. Rebecca, thank you for your rose too. Sorry, I don't know if that was loud. That was very loud on my ears. And thank you for your tiny, Sasha. Yippee! Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Shyama, Radhe Shyama, Shyama Shyama, Radhe Radhe. And thank you, Uno, for your rose. And MJ, thank you for your 10 roses. Radhe Radhe. May you all have a beautiful rest of your present moment. And as Bhante says, everything